It was one of those rare days where everything felt like a mix of nostalgia and excitement. I was sitting in a packed stadium, surrounded by the sound of cheering and the thrill of the game. People were everywhere, old friends, families, strangers all gathered together, sharing the moment. I was sitting with my cousins, people I hadn't seen in what felt like decades. We were reminiscing about old times, those summers spent together when we were younger. The laughter, the stories, it all felt familiar, like slipping back into an old pair of shoes. Everything felt right, like the world had slowed down just for us. But even though I was surrounded by my cousins, something felt off. It was like a distant sense of unease, a feeling that I couldn't shake. After a while, I stood up. My stomach growled, reminding me that I hadn't eaten yet. I made my way out of the crowd and toward the cafeteria. The food area was a lot quieter than the stadium, which struck me as odd for such a lively event. The cafeteria was sleek and modern, but there was an air of coldness to it. Long counters lined with trays of food, clean white walls, and metallic chairs. The sounds of the crowd outside barely reached this corner of the stadium. I grabbed a tray, picked something to eat, and then found a seat. As I sat down, I noticed there were people around my age sitting nearby. They were scattered at different tables, but something about them felt oddly familiar. They seemed like they might be the type of people I'd know if I'd stayed around here longer. I caught the eye of a couple of them, and we struck up a conversation. "Hey, you here for the game?" a guy asked, leaning over the back of his chair. He had dark hair and a lazy grin. "Yeah, but I'm just looking for some food," I replied, laughing a little at how hungry I felt. Another girl sitting across from him chimed in. "Yeah, you look like you need a solid meal. It's been crazy out there today." We all laughed, the tension of the stadium a distant memory. We started talking about random things, how strange it was to be here, how everything felt a little too perfect. But as I looked at them, I noticed a strange intensity behind their eyes. It wasn't that they seemed dangerous, but there was something unsettling about the way they watched me, as though they were waiting for something. After a few minutes, one of them, a woman sitting to my left, pulled out her phone. She opened it, and before I could ask what she was doing, she showed me the screen. It was an image, grainy like an old news report. The image flickered as though it had been paused at the wrong moment. At first, I couldn't make sense of it, but as I squinted, the details became clear. It was a man, his face obscured by a white hockey mask. But what stopped me cold was what was written across the mask. In bold red letters, the word Vioid was written across the hockey mask. It looked unusual, as if it had an eerie presence, its letters almost shimmering in the dim light. The holographic stickers on either side of the mask shimmered, making it feel as though they were trying to escape the image. The unsettling part was how those stickers seemed to reflect something darker, that wasn't quite in the frame. For a second, I thought I saw a flicker, a moment when the word Vod seemed to stretch and contort, like it was warning me of something terrible. But then the image disappeared, leaving me with an uneasy feeling I couldn't shake. I stared at the woman in disbelief. What is this?" I managed to ask. The guy sitting next to me leaned in, his face drained of color. "It's him. He's one of them. The marked ones. They're already here, and we're in trouble." To another person at the table, who I hadn't noticed before, muttered, his voice barely above a whisper, "You don't get it. Once you see them, it's already too late. You're marked." I tried to shake it off, but the unease in my gut wouldn't go away. I glanced around the cafeteria, trying to act like everything was fine. But then I saw them. The men. They were walking toward us, men in white hockey masks. 5 of them, moving slowly, deliberately, as if they had a purpose. They weren't rushing. They weren't panicked. They just walked with quiet confidence, and each of them had something different about their mask. The man in front, the one leading them, wore a mask with the word Vioda in bold, red letters. It was flanked by strange, holographic stickers, shimmering and shifting like they were alive with no clear design. The word Viod seemed to glow faintly, almost as if it were alive in its own right, sending an icy shiver through me. The other 4 men wore masks that were just as strange, each one different in its own unsettling way. I couldn't quite make out the words at first, but I could see them flickering, like they were playing with my mind. There was a faint sense of something hanging over them, an energy that was both terrifying and overwhelming. It was like the words above their heads were meant to symbolize something, but I couldn't make out the details. One mask, as they got closer, almost felt like it had the word silent written across it. Another had something that seemed to whisper, "W-wait." I couldn't catch the full words of the others, but I felt like I was seeing pieces of something far darker, far more dangerous than I was ready to comprehend. They stopped as they reached the center of the cafeteria, each of them taking a moment to look around. The weight of the situation settled like a thick fog, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The man with the word, VOD, didn't need to say a word. He stood tall, his gaze cold, as the others flanked him. I could feel the weight of his presence, as if something was shifting in the air around him. His presence alone radiated danger, and I could feel the tension rise in the air. The tension in the room was thick. It was clear that whatever was going to happen next, it was inevitable. The weight of the words, VO'd, pressed down on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the other words, silent, white, alarm and lest, were just as dangerous. Each one of those men represented a part of the horror unfolding before us. The cafeteria was completely silent now. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights above seemed to fade into the background as I sat frozen, not knowing whether to run or stay. But whatever happened next, I knew this nightmare wasn't over. What came next, I still can't fully explain. The men stood there, unmoving, as if waiting for something, or someone to make the first move. But that feeling of dread, that sense that everything was wrong, lingered long after they left. It's been years, and I still think back to that moment in the cafeteria, wondering what would have happened if I had just gotten up and run. But I didn't. And now I wonder if that was my biggest mistake.